Alrighty, thank you for that round of applause from everyone here today going on. Guys, with everything going on right now in the world, it's a scary thing, and unfortunately, it's no better time to be at home and play some video games. And we're going to discuss one of my favorite franchises today. That franchise being the legacy of Resident Evil. If everybody doesn't know, Resident Evil was a franchise that officially started back in 1996. And Resident Evil for the PlayStation followed its protagonists, Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. And the main narrative of it is that you were called there for just like a little outbreak and stuff, everything going on, the horror element of it. And you're members of STARS, which is Special Tactical Advance and Rescue. So you're like the best, you're like a super cop. You're the best of the best. And Resident Evil was pretty cool, and it made a splash in the gaming industry with not only with tank controls at the time and your graphics of the PS1, which weren't the best, but it was something. But the puzzle system was far ahead of its time. The gameplay was really cool. How you could actually shoot and you could stand and you could actually move and stuff. And just the compelling story of the characters, the way they were written, just the single player experience in total was very different afterwards, to say the least. And Resident Evil 1 is one of my favorites, so there's that. Two Resident Evil games that had actually made like a really big splash and a really big foundational impact to the series moving forward was Resident Evil 2. And Resident Evil 2 included a variety of new creatures and new monsters, but it also took you out of that mansion element and that mansion environment where, yeah, the lighting was eerie, the music was good, and it was just dark and depressing. And going to 2, because Capcom had all that feedback from the fans of 1, you shift over to 2, and the success of 2 was so greenlit that Capcom was already making 2 months after the first one was done. So when Resident Evil 2 was dropped in 1998, everybody was like, this is Resident Evil 2, it looks different. You're not in the mansion anymore. You're in a police station. You're in the city. You had a map. You played as two different characters. You played as Jill. No, not Jill. Jill was in the first one with her handy-dandy lockpick. And the second one, you played as Claire Redfield, which was Chris's younger sister. And you played as a first-day rookie police officer, Leon S. Kennedy. Yes, that's right. What better way to start off your career as being a cop and going into Raccoon City, where everybody's a zombie? That's a great day to start. And there was new puzzles in it. Like, you had to like do different medallions and stuff to get through the police station. You had to use your inventory. Resident Evil is a franchise predicated on the balance and the completion of your inventory, because you only get a small one, and you can increase it by hip pouches and stuff. But other than that, you have to plan every move. You have to plan every step. And that's one thing, because it's survival horror. Many don't understand the predication of survival horror. Survival horror is like, okay, I got 10 bullets, but I'm also dying, so I need to go get health. I don't have enough inventory. Do I waste the bullets? Do I waste the health? But there's a save spot over there, so how am I going to get to that? Everybody knows you use the health and you just run and gun it, and then, yeah. But with its flaws, Resident Evil 2 is still revered as the best of the series. But, another game that really made Resident Evil 2 and made Resident Evil stand on the map was Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 3 not included only the quick step element. It included having this menacing, terrifying creature following you at all times, the Nemesis. Like, you see him on the cover of the game and you're like, that thing's chasing me. And you're once again thrust into the responsibilities of Jill Valentine, everything that she has going for her. She's STARS. She just saw what happened at the mansion outbreak. She's trying to stop Umbrella because, in these franchises, somebody's always pulling something behind the strings. Somebody's the puppet master. And unfortunately, it's the pharmaceutical company Umbrella. So there's that. And Resident Evil 3, it was just something. It was like it didn't even. It was like, why is this game being made? Nobody wanted it. Resident Evil 3 was a beta for Resident Evil 4, which was one of the greatest Resident Evils of all time, people say. And Resident Evil 3, it was more action oriented than the first and the second one. You could do a quick step to dodge. You had like bullet time and stuff. And you had more inventory. You had more puzzles. It was just everything a gamer could want at the time. And then Resident Evil 4 came along. And with the feedback of Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 1, they were able to perfect Resident Evil 4. And Resident Evil 4 had many breaking points and many building blocks of how this is the third person shooter. This is what's going forward. This is what we're going to do. When people saw the trailer for Resident Evil 4, they're like, you can actually turn, you can aim, you can run. You can't just stay in one spot. You can actually run and aim and shoot at the same time. And people are like, yeah. So that was pretty cool to see. And Resident Evil 4, just the story was great. You played as Leon again. Everything happened. Resident Evil 4 was like one of the first games I have ever played. So having that. And the cool thing about Capcom and the video game industry is that sometimes the market gets so flooded with the same thing that people just like, oh, I don't want this. I'd rather have a remake. You know, I want this. So now in 2019 and 2020, technically we're in 2020. I'm saying 2019 because Resident Evil 2 was one of their remakes that they did. And fans always use the right to Capcom. Capcom, can you please make Resident Evil 2? Can you please remake it? We need to see that environment, how it would look on the RE7 engine. Let's do this. Like, we need this in our lives. And Capcom was like, you want Resident Evil 2? You're going to get Resident Evil 2. So last year they dropped Resident Evil 2. They updated the graphics, the narrative. The gameplay was great. It had like that survival horror element. You were always going to your item box. You're like, oh man, I need to pick up this. I can't pick up that. What do I do? You was always looking at the map. You were just like, oh, it's so good just thinking about it. Like, I beat that game so many times. And then something happened. A miracle happened. Resident Evil 3 was announced at E3. And people were like, they're remaking Resident Evil 3 right now? We're going to get to play as Jill again. We're going to get to fight the Nemesis again, where this dude is going to chase us all the time. Like, give me that survival horror. Like, fans were salivating at the bit waiting for the game. And Resident Evil 3 was actually pretty fun. I enjoyed it. The gameplay was great. It was a reskin of 2. Nothing wrong with that. It paired it with this new multiplayer. Something Capcom was trying to do because they're trying to stay inventive and the age of video games where everything feels the same and feels bland and complacent. So, but, you know, there are some flaws to it too, though. The pacing was very rushed. They did cut a lot. And I feel like the reason they cut and stuff was because nobody really knew or remembered those parts unless you actually played the games. Everybody just wants this action-oriented QuickTime event montage. And that's what Resident Evil 3 felt like. But with everything going on and how the technology and the hardware for gaming is going to improve so much, it really makes you think, what if they did a Resident Evil 4? I mean, it's not only the highest rated game in the franchise, but people love Resident Evil 4 because of these core 3 games. Resident Evil 1 having puzzles, having everything you could think of, video, the way you were shooting, the way the story was, the way the camera was. Resident Evil 2, the maps, the environment, the switching between the dual characters, seeing the new perspectives, just being integrated in the server, everything about it. Resident Evil 3 having Nemesis chase you, the clock tower, the fuse boxes, the CGI cutscenes. It really makes you think, with the graphics nowadays and the engine and the hardware, the Xbox One, the PS4 transitioning to the Xbox Series X, and the PS5 coming, how will Capcom do on a remake for Resident Evil 4? With the franchise shrouded in darkness right now and not a certainty in the future, and how they keep looking back to the past and remaking nostalgia bits of classics, do you want another remake? Do you want Resident Evil 4? Or do you want Resident Evil 8 with something new and fresh? But with the feedback of Resident Evil 3 and how people really didn't enjoy it, goes to show you that Resident Evil 4 remake is going to be a lot better than you really think it will. And that's something to think about.